it's clearly been made clear to Donnarumma, we want to sell you. We want you out of the club. Now, Donnarumma, for his part, is not just going to be forced out. He's not going to be in that position where he'll just go anywhere. The project needs to be right. But PSG are probably thinking the timing of this is great because there's a World Cup at the end of the year, at the end of the season. Donnarumma is going to need to be playing. And if we're making it clear to him he's not playing here, he's going to have to go.
Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe and we are here today with a special interview with Dharmesh Sheth, Sky Sports news reporter and regular on the show now as well. Dharmesh, how are you doing?
I'm very well. Every time I do one of these with you, Joe, there seems to be good news coming out from United during this window, and
I know.
You can't get used to it, but
I know.
They seem to be doing a bit of business finally.
It's a little bit better, isn't it? Especially when you compare it to, I think, some of the chats that we had in January,
yes.
and some of the years gone by where it's not felt quite so competent and quite so put together. Let's sort of start at the back and kind of move forward to the future. So let's start with this Sesko deal then, because obviously that was confirmed and sorted last week. There's been a lot of talk about Sesko all summer. Arsenal wanted him, Newcastle wanted him. They weren't able to get him. It appeared as though he sort of chose Man United, and that was the foundation of this deal, which we'll get back to because that seems to be one of United's methods and sort of models for this summer. Talk to me about that Sesko deal. How did that come about and why did he choose Manchester United?
So, first of all, it hasn't just been an interest in this window. I'm sure we've spoken about this before, but Manchester United tried to sign him 3 years ago as well. They've been having a look at his progress for a number of years. So it's not something that has just come up in this summer's transfer window when they thought, oh, we need to bring in a number 9. Who can we get? They were looking at a number of options. They were looking at Gyökeres. He's gone to Arsenal, of course. Ollie Watkins and Nicholas Jackson as well, purely because of the fact they've got Premier League experience, and the majority, the big signings that United have made in this window have been players who have Premier League experience. But this one is the one that kind of usurped all of that, in the fact that they really did want him for a long time. They did focus on him, but as you mentioned there in that question, the tactic has been United are only going to bid if they feel and are encouraged enough that the player wants to come. Mm-hmm. Now, Newcastle United's bids were higher than Manchester United's. They had their first one rejected. United stayed quiet. Then they really went for it, did Newcastle. It was a bid which in total was worth around 85 to 90 million euros. And the initial payment that they would have paid is more than what United ended up paying. But United still held back because what they wanted was an assurance from Sesko that he wanted to go to Old Trafford, because there was no point going into the market at that point and competing and trying to get in a bidding war with Newcastle. Because if the player wants to go, there was some sort of gentleman's agreement, I think, between RB Leipzig and Sesko that said, look, if a certain club reaches this figure, we will allow you to go, regardless of if another club comes in with a higher bid. That was the relationship that the two shared. He never agitated to go. He let RB Leipzig get on with it. That's why when United got wind, right, he definitely wants to come, that's when they showed their hand. And it was still less than Newcastle's bid, and it was still less than the initial payment of Newcastle's bid. But because the player wanted to go, and because it had reached a level that RB Leipzig would have been happy with, that's why that deal happened. They didn't say to United, well, Newcastle United have bid more than you, you're going to have to go. United would have said, well, no, we're not going to then. And then they would have had an issue, because Sesko has made it clear throughout he only wanted Manchester United. So what RB Leipzig had to be a little bit cute there. For the sake of 5 or 10 million euros, do they allow a big 80 to 85 million euro deal go by the wayside simply because another club has bid a little bit more, and a club where this player does not want to go? So that's, you could say United played it a little bit cleverly there, because they thought, no point bidding against Newcastle. That's not our issue. If he wants to go to Newcastle and they want to bid that much, he's going to go there. But he clearly wanted to go to United. That's why they held back and did the deal like they did. And I think a lot of the noise is coming out of the club. I was speaking earlier in the window that it might have been driven by Christopher Vivell because of the relationship he had with Sesko, bringing him to Red Bull Salzburg when he was a 16-year-old, when Vivell was a scout there. It was Jason Wilcox who was a massive driving force in this deal. He oversaw the whole deal, as you'd expect him to in his role. And Matt Hargreaves and Christopher Vivell were out there in Leipzig. And once they arrived in Leipzig, knowing that Sesko wanted to come, they basically stayed there until that deal got done. They weren't coming back unless that deal got done, and that's how it transpired.
Interesting. We're using sort of words and phrases that make me almost feel like we're acting with some sort of competence in the window. It's like the way that we kind of let Newcastle, we'll worry about other things. It feels like, I don't know if this is the case. Obviously, I'm, putting things in the mouths of Ed Woodward or Richard Arnold or John Murtaugh, but I don't remember a time where we haven't been the ones that have been sort of bidding or, trying to make sure this deal happens quickly and ended up paying more. It feels like we've sort of allowed things to be calm and cool. And I'd be interested to know, I'm not sure if you do know, because there wasn't a lot of links to United when back at the start of the window when Arsenal were bidding. But why that he didn't go to Arsenal, but he has come to Manchester United? Do we know why that deal fell through? And was there anything to do with him wanting to join Man United as part of that, or is that a separate thing?
I don't think it was a case of the deal falling through. You'll have clubs who have multiple targets, and they will decide where they want to go. So Arsenal ended up thinking, right, we think for us, Victor Gyökeres is going to be the player that's going to help us at this stage. Whereas United probably thought, yes, Gyökeres is a player that we do like. He knows the manager really, really well. He's played brilliant football under Ruben Amorim before for Sporting. But it was decided by committee that with all the stats and the age profile and everything that goes into the background of bringing in a striker and the desire of the player to come as well, that can only help. So that all of that would have come together. So it wasn't a case of he snubbed Newcastle or Arsenal have snubbed Sesko. I don't think it works like that entirely. So when clubs go into the market, they will decide which is the right player for them, and then they will target that player. For United, they would have, as I mentioned before, they looked at a number of strikers in the number 9 position, and they settled on Sesko as being the best of an age profile that they will think, yes, this is the guy we think for the next 4, 5, 6 years can lead the line here at Old Trafford. So I don't think it's a case. I know it makes for better headlines, right? Newcastle have lost out again because he wanted to go to Man United. Newcastle's by the by, I think, a little bit here because he only wanted to go to Manchester United. It could have been anyone else. It could have been another 3 other clubs bidding for him, but he'd made his mind up.
That's what you want to hear, isn't it? That he just wanted to join United over everyone else. Without being too greedy here, Dharmesh, I'm going to ask you, what next? Who can we expect through the door next? Because there's obviously been links to midfielders, links to Carlos Baleba in particular. It seems as though there's definite sort of interest in him. Where are we up to with this sort of deal? And also, if it isn't to be Baleba this summer, do you think it would be a case of waiting until next year, or do you think United would turn their eye to other midfield targets?
So, midfield is clearly a position that they want to strengthen. That is going to be easier said than done because before the Sesko deal happened, we were saying the priority is sales. Now, while the priority was sales, the kind of messaging changed very slightly because all along, after Mbeumo and Cunha came, it was a case of, right, United need to now sell before they bring any players in. But the reason that that messaging changed is because the timing of the Sesko deal. It didn't stop them doing the Sesko deal if they hadn't made sales before making the Sesko deal. However, they had to have in the back of their mind and in the background things happening with potential sales so that before the end of the window, in their mind, there's going to be some sort of assurance that these sales are going to happen. So the 5 players that we have been talking about throughout the window, Rashford, Malacia, Garnacho, Sancho, Anthony, it's become 6 now. well, it's 5 really. Rashford's gone, but it's become 5 again because of Rasmus Højlund's future, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a moment. But that is where United's priority is. Now, again, if they want to go into the market, they want to be in a position where they can act if a big market opportunity was to present itself. It is clear they are interested in Carlos Baleba. There's absolutely no doubt about that. They've explored the conditions of a deal, and they do want the player. This is not going to be an easy deal to do, though, simply because Brighton don't want to sell. They insist he's not for sale, and they're under no pressure to sell. He's got 3 years left on his contract with an option of a further year. So when you're saying, if they can't get him now, would they try and get him again next summer? Pricing wise, I don't think that's going to be an issue, because I don't think that's going to change much. And if he stays at Brighton and has a great season, who's to say that the price that United might be quoted now isn't going to go up next summer? With that will bring its own problems again with regard to how much Manchester United will be able to spend. So they want him, but it's going to be very, very difficult to get him. But simply by the fact that there is interest in this player reflects the mood amongst Manchester United fans, I think, well, the ones I've spoken to, that they're very content and happy and impressed at how this transfer window has gone. But what they've seen in pre-season, while they've seen lots of good things, they've spotted, right, the central midfield still seems to be a bit of an issue at United. And Baleba, the fact that they're going for Baleba, I think is reassuring Manchester United fans that, yes, the club see that as a problematic area as well. Whether they can solve that problem in this transfer window, it's going to be difficult, but it's not going to be for the want of trying, because they definitely are interested in the player.
Yeah, it seems like for years, or it wasn't uncommon at all for United to have a transfer window where us as fans, and there's never consensus amongst all fans, obviously, but there'd be a sort of a real thing. We go, look, there's a problem in that part of the pitch. Just look, and United go, here's a new striker. No, send defensive, and it would get. What was it? I think we signed Matic as a defensive midfielder when he was 29.
Yeah.
And around him we signed like no defensive midfielders until Casemiro, from basically Michael Carrick or Morgan Schneiderlin, maybe, if you want to look at. And it felt like for years this has been a problem. We haven't fixed it. Oh, we won't fix it again. We'll get you a new winger. Here's Jadon Sancho. And you think, like, there's clearly an issue. It now feels like we see things as fans, and obviously you would hope that the people at the football club know more about football than us, not less. We are just fans. I want the people running Manchester United to know more about football than me.
Yeah.
And finally, it seems as though at least I can go, actually, that makes sense. So it felt as though before the feeling was that, like you said, we might need to sell players to get Benjamin Sesko in. That hasn't really happened. United haven't received any money for any transfers other than people going to Newcastle and Real Madrid. I think is the only money we've received in terms of sell-on clauses. But in terms of actually selling our players this summer, we haven't received any money as of yet. Would it be the case then, do you think, with Baleba or another midfielder, that United do have to get rid of some of Højlund, Sancho, etc.?
So like I said before, I think the messaging has slightly changed. So say, for example, in the next 4 days or 5 days, it suddenly became a doable deal to get Carlos Baleba, for argument's sake. Manchester United aren't not going to do that deal because they haven't sold any players. But in the background, they will be working on these sales. And there must be some sort of element of confidence at United that there is going to be money coming in for some players. Now, you've also got to remember that the way transfers work now is the wages side of it is almost as important as a transfer fee. Clearly, Manchester United want to maximise transfer fees. Of course they do. But if you look at the Rashford deal, if you believe what you read, £300,000 to £350,000 a week. So you're looking at 15 to 17 million pounds a year saved by Manchester United by sending him on loan to Barcelona. Now, if you look at that 15 to 17 million pounds, if it is that much, just say it's 13 to 17 million pounds in that ballpark figure that they've saved. You could actually argue, well, that could be the first installment for Benjamin Sesko. Because Manchester United, despite them doing a deal worth around, what was it, 74 million pounds, they're not spending 74 million pounds now. The initial payment, something like 65 million, and say it's a 5-year contract. Normally, they try and do this deal and amortize it over the length of a contract, or maybe 4 years or of a contract. So it's a percentage of that 65 million pounds that you could argue has been covered by Rashford. Now, say Manchester United, yes, they want to sell Sancho. Borussia Dortmund are still working on that deal. The talk is, look, the wages are still an issue. So is another loan out of the question? Probably not. But is that going to be detrimental to United? Yes, in one way, because they're not going to get a transfer fee, but the wages might come off the books. And then suddenly you might have another installment for another player that you can go out and get. Looking further, the likes of Anthony, again, Real Betis are still working on that deal. They're finding it difficult. Garnacho is the one where United will expect to get some money. This is looking increasingly likely that Chelsea are going to come in formally with that bid. United are expecting that. United won around 50 million pounds. Chelsea believe they can get in for less than 50 million pounds. There might be a compromise that can come in there. So not only will United get a transfer fee for Garnacho, if and when that deal happens, the wages will come off there as well. So you can start working out how the finances will be apportioned. And then you've got the case of Rasmus Højlund. With Sesko arriving, I think it's been made clear to him he isn't going to play. And if he needed any more of a message, then what happened over the weekend against Fiorentina, he's on the bench. Mason Mount is being used as a false nine. If that doesn't send a message to you that you are not part of these plans, I don't think anything will. Initially, yes, he wants to fight for his place and he wants to stay. However, I think now he's starting to get the message, actually, I'm not going to play here. However much I fight, however much I say that. AC Milan definitely want him. They want to do a loan with an option. Manchester United, they want to do a permanent deal, or at least have a permanent element attached to that deal. And they want around 40 million pounds for Rasmus Højlund. Now, there are two ways you can work that one out. So United get the transfer fee and they sell him permanently, or they do some sort of deal whereby it might end up being 40 million pounds eventually. So you have a loan fee and the wages will come off of Rasmus Højlund for this season in a loan deal. And then at the end of next season, if he's done well and the option gets taken up, it could be like a 35 million pound option price. So they get that money then. But the money that they might get by letting him go now, if it was just to be a loan, you'll get a loan fee plus all the wages that have been taken off. You're looking at potentially around 10 million pounds that they could make from a loan from Rasmus Højlund. So the way that they will work it out is slightly different to us just saying, right, they need 50 million now, because it doesn't work like that anymore.
It's interesting, isn't it? It feels like this is maybe a wild and silly analogy, but like, do you know, it feels like at the minute we're sort of getting 5 million here and getting, you know, a bit from Elanga and a bit from Fernandes, and we'll do sort of a loan thing here. It's like we're sort of looking in the cupboard, what ingredients have we got, and we'll make a meal from that. It feels like in the past we've gone out and bought a kilo of prawns and a kilo of pasta and all, and you've got all this waste at the side just for one meal. It feels like actually we're sort of going, you know what, we don't need to sort of sell this person for 60 million or give this person 350 grand wages. What we can do is we can look at someone that's on fewer wages or less wages. We can get this person, and actually, like you said, the deal for Barca to Rashford is almost the sort of the single year fee of the first instalment of another player. And it's like we're actually being a little bit smart and creative here, rather than just going, oh, what do we need? Oh, it's a big striker, or Casemiro on 60 million and 350 grand a week wages. It feels a little bit more grown up and intelligent. I just wonder
whether United are trying to draw a line under what's happened since Sir Alex Ferguson left now. And if it means that they're going to make losses on players and not get the transfer fees that they would have commanded or what they're worth in the open market, I think at this moment in time, they're just trying to think, this has to stop now. So rather, like, I think I've said this to you before, and the comparison I make to what United might have to do or what they might be planning to do is what Arsenal did when Arteta came in. And the likes of Aubameyang, who had just signed a bumper new contract, they took the hit. They paid him off. They mutually terminated that contract. They did that with a number of other players as well, simply because they decided at some point this has to stop because we can't move on. And United are probably deciding we want this much money for all of these players, but there's a strong likelihood we're not going to get that much money for all these players. So what are we going to do? Are we just going to carry on with these players in the training ground, away from the first team squad, just a little bit of a shadow over this squad? Or do we take the hit and start now? And I think that's what they might do. If you look at Rashford, that's a case in point. At his peak, what were we talking about? We were talking 80 to 100 million pounds.
Yeah.
Now United have just said, Barcelona, you can have him for 26 million, and it's an option. You don't even have to buy him. That's where United are at the minute. But that's some of the decisions that they've made when they've just thought, stop. Let's not let this carry on and on and on. Let's stop it now. If it means making a loss, which is not ideal, sometimes that might just be what they'll plan to do just to move forward.
Yeah, because otherwise you sort of get trapped in this cycle, don't you, of trying to get a bit of money back, and then they stay for 4 years, they leave on a free, and in the meantime you sign a new transfer and go, hang on, he's barely even plays for you and he's on 280 grand a week, I want 300, and this snowball, you get sort of trapped in it, don't you? I mean, you kind of mentioned there a lot of the outs about the sort of Garnacho to Chelsea, we're expecting a bid there. Sancho and Dortmund still seems to be an active situation, as does Højlund to Milan. Let's look at one other in that seems to be kind of, I don't want to say, I don't know, that it won't go away, but we keep hearing the name Donnarumma. What's going on with him, and is there any actual sort of chance of him signing for Man United? Are we even interested in him?
Right, two parts of this. First of all, from Donnarumma's situation, it's just developed now, because yesterday was pretty key. That tomorrow night they play Tottenham Hotspur. As we record this, Wednesday night they play Tottenham Hotspur in the Super Cup. Gianluigi Donnarumma is not part of that squad. Yesterday, they confirmed the signing of a new goalkeeper, Lucas Chevalier from Lille. Now, Chevalier is not turning up to PSG to compete or be number 2 to Donnarumma. He is there to be the number 1 goalkeeper. So it's clearly been made clear to Donnarumma, we want to sell you. We want you out of the club. Now, Donnarumma, for his part, is not just going to be forced out. He's not going to be in that position where he'll just go anywhere. The project needs to be right. But PSG are probably thinking the timing of this is great because there's a World Cup at the end of the year, at the end of the season. Donnarumma is going to need to be playing. And if we're making it clear to him he's not playing here, he's going to have to go. And I think one of the primary reasons for that, twofold. One, he's into the final year of his contract. So they don't, at the moment, want to renegotiate a new contract because I've heard he's on over £300,000 a week. So PSG don't want to pay him that money moving forward. So it's one of those situations, we've talked about it with United. Will PSG, if they don't get the transfer fee that they want, but they manage to get him out of the club and not have to pay the wages, you're looking at 15 to 17 million pounds saving there alone on the wages on Donnarumma. Now, where can he go? Right, earlier on in this transfer window, we were told that United did explore the conditions of a deal. That was when there were huge doubts about the future of Andre Onana. However, at that time, it was clear that there were other priority positions on the pitch, which we've seen come to fruition. The striker and the 2 number 10s. And moving further down, midfielder probably is ahead of bringing in a new goalkeeper. Since then, it's kind of quietened down, and the noise is coming out of United now is that they're unlikely to pursue Andre Onana. Not that we've not heard of many concrete offers that have come in for him, and that would probably have to happen, Onana to leave, for United to go back into the market to bring in Donnarumma, because they've already got a full set of goalkeepers there at United in Onana, Heaton and Bayindir. Bringing in another one who would expect to come in and start while you've still got Andre Onana there on big wages, I don't think is going to be workable for United at this stage. I'm not saying it can't happen, and I'm not saying that, the noises will be, well, if Onana goes, then maybe we'll go for Donnarumma. But like we've said before, if Højlund goes, then we'll go for Sesko. But it didn't work out that way. It went the other way. Sesko came in first. So I'm not saying that Donnarumma wouldn't come in first and then Onana, but it looks really unlikely at this stage. And if you look at United social media channels yesterday, they made a point of Andre Onana's back and he's fit. Lots of pictures of him smiling on the website. So I don't know whether that's done by accident or a coincidence, or whether they're just saying this is the news for today. But it was interesting that all of that came out yesterday at the same time that Donnarumma is being talked about with United. There have been 2 other Premier League clubs, I'm told as well, who have, via intermediaries, looked at Donnarumma. There hasn't been club-to-club contact yet, but I think this one will move somewhere very, very soon now.
Interesting. I mean, I think he's one of those players, Donnarumma, where it felt like everyone at the start went, oh, if we could get him, that would be amazing. He was so good in the Champions League last season. Then people start going, he actually sort of makes quite a few mistakes, and PSG fans haven't really been happy with him. And then you go, oh, maybe this is just exactly what we saw with Onana, a brilliant Champions League run that impressed all of us in England, when actually there's a reason maybe the PSG are getting rid of him. We'll have to wait and see on that one, of course, though. Dharmesh, thank you, of course, as always, for coming on. Thank you again for you watching at home as well. Click the link in the description. We'll get Dharmesh's socials on there. Obviously, check him out on Sky Sports News all the time. Hope you have a fantastic week and an end to the transfer window as well. We'll get you on before the end of the transfer window, though, of course, because there's plenty more still to come. I still think we can get Baleba done. I really do. Obviously, that's not your words, Dharmesh. That's mine. I think we can get it done. But thank you for coming on, mate.
No problem. Enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for joining us at home. We'll see you in a bit.